everybody, happy Torch Thursday live tutorial stream. I'm sorry I'm late this Thursday. Windows Update really is the bane of my existence because I restarted the computer because XSplit crashed multiple times, and then I had to go through the whole, let's set up your account. I'm like, let's not. Let's just let me in my computer. Also, music is not currently playing, right? Because it like stopped by itself. I didn't stop it, but it appears to be stopped. Just making sure there's not like ghost music playing in the background. So how's everybody doing? Happy St. Gertrude's Day. St. Gertrude, for anybody who didn't know, is the patron saint of cats. So I am dressed in my St. Gertrude's Day attire because I like cats better than I like, old white men. So also happy St. Patrick's Day to anybody who's celebrating that. I realize that St. Gertrude is, the lesser of the two saints as far as being known. So I'm, taking it upon myself to promote knowledge of St. Gertrude to the world. So, yay! Always love, cats when they appear in the mythology. So, what are we doing tonight? We are doing this one. This is our sterling mandala pendant. And I just realized that I forgot a part, so at some point I'm going to jump up and grab a soldered ring. But, sure, just like a 6mm sterling soldered ring. Sorry, honestly, I don't know if I got everything else, but I think I did. As usual with soldering tutorials, I'll probably at some point remember what I forgot, and then I'll thank you. And then I'll tell you all about it. So this is one of those projects where when I'm setting up to teach it, I go, why on earth did I do this to myself? Why did I make a project that requires every freaking heavy tool in the store to be brought out all at once, and now I have the increased obstacle of shoving them all into my very small streaming area, which those of you who have been here and seen the streaming area know that it is not large. There's not a lot of space, but the answer, of course, is why do I do that? Why do I make tutorials that involve every tool known to man? Because tools are cool. That's why. Tools are fun. I like tools. And if I'm going to buy them, then I have to make excuses to use them, and then therefore we get every tool in the shed tutorials. So there's a lot of equipment. There's actually more equipment that you need for this class, or that will help you make this pendant, even than was listed on the internet. So I'm just going to take a real quick rundown. I can guarantee you I'm not going to get everything as far as tools go. So let's talk about supplies first, because there's actually very few supplies. There are very many tools, not a lot of supplies. So you're going to need a sterling silver or brass or bronze or copper. If you're going to use brass or bronze, then you have to deal with super pickle. Hi, Mary! Which is a whole different kettle of fish that we're not going to do in tonight's tutorial. So if you want to keep it easy, a sterling silver disc. This is a 1 1/8 inch sterling silver disc. Really, any size sterling disc will work with this. And if you don't have a pre-made disc, oh good lord, oh I'm so sorry. That sucks. I'm sorry, as far as just run-of-the-mill illnesses, stomach bugs are the worst. I know as far as severe illnesses, as plenty of people would wish that they just had a stomach bug, but if you're just talking about common cold kind of crap, I would almost rather do anything than be vomiting all day. So I will do my best to be extra distracting. So I'm going to start banging on things soon, which hopefully will be distracting, but, did I catch it in my boobs? Almost. If you don't have a pre-cut sterling disc, you can use a disc cutter to cut your own. You also can cut them with a metal shears, even though cutting discs, you can ask Heather about cutting discs with metal shears, and it's more difficult than it sounds. It is possible though. I've done it in a pinch. Usually when you cut a circle with metal shears, you have to go back and file and sand the edges. But you need a sterling silver disc of some size. You're going to need a bezel cup and a stone. Now I'm gonna see if I can get this little eye, this little glass eye that came out of the evil eye chain that we sell to work in this bezel cup. I don't know if it will because it's domed on both sides. It's not flat on the back, so I'm afraid it may rock around too much when I try to set it. So I have a backup little tiger eye cabochon in there just in case that turns out to be a bad idea. And then there is the 6mm soldered ring that Heather so kindly went and got for me. And then as far as solder goes, you're just gonna need easy solder. If you don't have easy solder, you could use medium solder. If you don't have medium solder, you could use extra easy solder. But you only need one melting point. You only need one density of solder for this, because we are gonna go ahead and yeah, I'm just gonna do it the quick and dirty way. One density of solder is good. I managed, we were so slow today at Beading Dreams that we did get to see a Jenny Day, which was awesome. But we were so slow today at Beading Dreams that I did manage to get all 4 of my class samples for next week done. And there's the soldering project for next week, the Torch Thursday project, is a pretty complicated one, which means that there's even odds that it is going to become an episode of Allison Screws Up on the internet. But it uses all 3 densities of solder: medium, easy, and extra easy. So, and once again, as I'm finishing the project, I'm like, why did I do this to myself? Why does my brain make things so hard? And the answer, of course, is because the harder things are cooler. So, tools. Including but not limited to torch, soldering surface, pickle and pickle pot, flux and a flux brush, dapping block is what this is called. Dapping bot. I mean, I would like to have a dapping bot.
That'd be nice.
I mean, we don't really dap that much that we need, you know, an automated dapping system. Actually, I think the dapping bot is called a hydraulic press, which would make Carol May very happy. But yes. Dapping block, and punches to go with it, steel bench block, and design stamps. So I have just my gelato container here of all my different design stamps. I'm not completely sure what I'm going to use tonight, but I've got that there. Also, I can move more space. Sorry? More flat surfaces in this teeny tiny 24 by 72 inch space that I stream in.
What can I get for you?
You know, I should put a drawer set or a table or something down here. You don't need to get me anything. Now I'm just, you know, it's just a sliding puzzle like everything else in our lives. Continuing on with tools, this is a really handy tool for keeping things centered. You want to know what it's called? It's written right on the tool. It's a center finder. It's one of those tools that really only has one purpose, but it is super easy to use. It's not that expensive. I don't tend to like single purpose tools always, but this guy, totally worth it. So you're gonna need a center finder, or you're just gonna need to triangulate the center of your disc using more primitive methods, or possibly geometry, whatever works for you. You're gonna need a hammer to hit your stamps with. I'm gonna use this beautiful brass hammer. That was a gift from a client, which I absolutely adore. And you're gonna use that to hit your stamps, and you're also gonna use that to hit your dapping punches. And you probably, I don't even think you need your hand tools for this project, but as soon as I say you don't, of course I'm gonna pick one up and use it. But chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, wire cutters, these are, you know, pretty much my don't leave home without it kids kit that I always have nearby whenever I'm doing a project. Okay, so I'm gonna start with my center finder, And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to get my disc out of this little box I put it in. So the way this works is super easy. You just take, all of my lights are on, and yet, okay, so you just take your disc and you're just going to drop it into the little V slot, and then you're going to grab a marker. Fine point marker works best for this because if your marker is too fat, it'll actually bump itself out away from the center. So you're just going to take your marker and you're going to draw a line. This is a project where you don't really want to scribe your lines. You want to draw them with a marker because we're not going to be polishing out the surface of this at all. So Sharpie is your friend in this. And then we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. And yes, I am just going to eyeball that and draw another line. And so what I have here is I've got two things. Number one, I found the exact center of my piece, and second, I've got some guidelines for placing my stamps. And now I'm going to put my center finder away. So once again, it's one of those tools where you don't use it very much, but again, they're not that expensive. I think it's like a $13 tool at most. You can get them off of Amazon, and it just makes things so much easier. So now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to draw myself with my Sharpie a little circle to sort of simulate where my stone is going to be. Because when I'm stamping, I don't want to stamp something super exciting in the middle and then have it get covered up by my stone. So now I'm going to grab my bench block. This means I have to make decisions about what stamps I'm going to use. Let's see. So this is actually a really cool set that Impress Art makes, and this is what's on my sample. So if I wanted to just be no-brainer about it, I could just do that. I'm trying to decide if I want to be brains or no brains tonight, but this is a cool set that Impress Art makes. That's literally, they call it a mandala set. So it comes with, I think there's a fourth one somewhere in here that's like a little arch of dots. So it comes with like 4 stamps, and the idea is you can take these and you can build up mandalas using the stamps. And so that is what I used on the sample. You can see now probably the similarity between the stamps on the sample and the stamps that are currently in my hand. But if you don't have that, you don't have to, why is there a dapping punch in here? You don't have to go that route. And you don't even have to, you don't even have to build a mandala, honestly. Like you can do whatever kind of stamping you want on this. Like I've had a lot of students do like, just a, oh, yay! Stream is getting better all the time. Anyway,
Yay.
I've had some students do fun things where like they, they'll put it like suns in one section and moons in the other and stars in the other. So there are all kinds of cool things that you can do, but I think I'm just going to be boring and I'm just going to do the mandala set, because otherwise I'm just going to be poking at my stamps for the next hour, and then everyone is going to leave because they're like, we came here to watch you do stuff, not just look at your toys and figure out what you want to play with. Okay, so I'm just going to do the regular mandala stamp. So when you're doing a big ass design stamp like this, and this isn't even the biggest ass design stamp that I have, but it's pretty large. There's a technique called tap and rock that works really well for bigger stamps like this, because it's really hard to get a full impression with just a single blow of your hammer. So basically what you do is you'll line it up, and you got to be, this takes a little bit of skill because you can't move it, but what you'll do is you'll hold it and you'll hit it with your hammer, and then you'll just kind of rock the weight of it to one side and hit it with the hammer again, and then rock it to the other side and hit it with the hammer again. And ideally, as long as you're just rocking it in place, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be getting your full impression. Now, I'm not going to be able to stamp this, unfortunately, without bashing my camera. So I'm going to do this off camera. When you're stamping, make sure you've got a good... I mean, that's fair. Yes, she showed me the picture, Sophia.
That was insane.
Oh my god. See, this is why winter is evil. It destroys cars, among other things. When you're stamping, you want to make sure you're holding at the base of your stamp. You're going to put your stamp on your metal, press down into the stamp and the bench block. Don't hold it up at the top. That puts your fingers way too close to the hammer. And don't, don't like hold it like it's, a snake or something. Like, hold it firmly. You are in control. You control the stamp does not control you. I'm just gonna put, just to help me line it up, I'm gonna draw myself a line that's centered right there on the center of my stamp. And now I can align that with the line for my center finder, and that's gonna make it easier to get it where I want it to be. Is it cold in Dallas? It was mildly chilly this morning, but not what I would call cold. It was one of those walk out, take a minute, go, do I want to go back in and get a coat? Nah. Okay, so I'm gonna hit this 3 times, and I'm gonna do the tap and rock. So hit it once. Sorry, Heather. I don't know that Heather was expecting that.
I wasn't expecting that right away.
All right, but see, look, I have a nice impression of that flower right there. So now I'm just gonna rotate it a quarter of a turn and do the same thing. Okay, incoming. So that's 2. So now I just have 2 more. So the thing about stamping is there's no eraser. So take your time, pay attention to what you're doing. Oops. See, I didn't quite get that one. I only did 2 blows with my hammer, and this is what happens. So now we get to see if I can line it back up again. Sometimes I can and sometimes I cannot.
It's so satisfying when you can.
It is, it's true. I did it!
Hi!
Look at that!
We can all see how satisfying it is.
Alright, last one. Ta-da! Alright, so now I've got my initial kind of flower shape stamped on there. So now I can go through and I can just add whatever decorations I want using my other stamps. I'm going to keep it pretty simple for tonight's tutorial just for the sake of time. So I think I'm going to take, I did find that one that I said was like a little arch of dots. And I think I'm just going to take that and put that in between the lobes or petals of my mandala and then call it a day. But you can get as complicated as you want to with your stamping. And this is a little stamp, so it should be good just hitting it once. And it's just going to add a little bit of detail. Okay, so there we go. There's my little dot stamps. So then, once again, you can get as detailed with your stamping as you want, but for the sake of time tonight, since I'm already 30 minutes, okay, I know, I never actually get on at 6 o'clock. We're already 15 minutes later than usual. If we're gonna be honest about things. So now I'm gonna move on to the next step, which is dapping. Okay, so that's when I need my dapping block. So the way that this works is so dapping blocks have all of these different little depressions in them, and you want to find the depression that your metal drops all the way into. So for me, that's that one. It is definitely is it t-shirt weather in Wisconsin, or just are you saying that in Texas it's t-shirt weather? Because it is not necessarily t-shirt weather for Texans here in Dallas, but it would be for a Wisconsinite. Ace wants to know, does it matter what metal you're stamping into, since you are going to be let's try that again. Since you are going to be soldering on it, it does need to be one of your fabrication appropriate metals. That would be sterling silver, solid 14 karat gold, brass, bronze, or copper. Copper is the softest of all of those metals, so if you are having difficulty getting impressions with your stamping, try copper because it's a softer metal. Brass and bronze and sterling are all alloys, and they're all harder than pure copper. So if you're having trouble with your stamping, try copper, but otherwise it really doesn't matter. Okay, so when you're dapping, your dapping block is going to come with a set of punches that are these, kind of big bulbous looking things, and it'll come with a variety of different sizes. So what you want to do is you want to find the size that most closely fits the depression that you're using. You want it to go all the way down inside. So for instance, this, no bueno, okay? That is going to just scar the bejesus out of your punches. These babies are not, even the cheap ones aren't cheap, so, be nice to your punches as much as you can. Make sure you pick the right size. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that on top of, so I'm going to make this convex with the pattern on the outside. So I'm going to put that pattern side down, because if you think about this, I'm going to form it to my dapping block. So if I want it to be convex with the pattern on the outside, pattern goes down. Take my dapping punch, put it right on top of my metal, and then I'm just going to smack on it with my hammer, and what's going to happen is it's going to start doming my metal. So I'm going to keep hammering and kind of moving my punch around a little bit until I've got a full dome going on. Okay, so once I've got my piece fully domed, I can either leave it like this, or if I want to, I can increase the dome by finding the next smallest depression, making sure that my punch still works for that, and actually putting it in that depression, and that'll dome it a little bit more. And you can actually keep doing this for a couple, 3 times. If you do it too much, thank you, Stream Deck. There's a limit to how much you can actually curve this before it's going to start to sort of fold in on itself. But you can get a decently high dome on it if you try hard enough. So I'm going to stick with this. So this is now my domed piece. So I'm done dapping. Get back in there. Or don't. Speaking of sliding puzzle. There we go. Nope, that's not going to go back in there. Okay, so now... So now it's time to solder. Which means that can go away. Now I'm going to pull out all my soldering stuff. So while I'm setting up my soldering stuff, I just want to give you the abbreviated version of Allison's 5-point soldering safety lecture number 1. Try and keep 6 to 8 inches of clear space around your soldering area at all times. Number 2. From the moment you have a torch going in your workspace, from that point forward, always assume that everything in your workspace is hot enough to burn you, because usually it is. Number 3, ventilation is important. If you find yourself coughing, hacking, wheezing, or feeling uncomfortable in the lung area, kind of like that, you may want to re-examine your ventilation situation. And number 4, if you're not actively soldering with your torch, turn it off, for goodness sakes. And number 5, make sure you know where your fire extinguisher is at all times. The timing on that was pretty perfect, so thank you for that. Okay, so I'm going to flux all of my metal. So what I have on my soldering board now is I have my dapped piece, my stamped and dapped piece that I just made. I've got my bezel cup, and I've got my jump ring, or in this case it's a soldered ring. You could use a jump ring as well. I like using soldered rings because then you don't have to worry about where you put the joint. So I'm going to flux all of these pieces of metal. Flux is a protectant that prevents your metal from oxidizing. That's what allows the soldering reaction to happen. I'm going to cut 3 small pieces of my easy solder. 1, and when I say small, it really means small, okay? They are wee bitty tiny. They're right there. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, I'm going to take my tweezers. I'm going to put 1, well, not there. I'm going to put 1 on the back of my bezel cup, and then I'm going to put the other 2 on my jump ring. And so here's a trick to get them to stay on the top of the jump ring. Dab a little bit more flux on there, and then they will stick to the flux. Now, I'm using a paste flux. The brand I use is, oh come on. The brand I use is called Handy Flux, and I like it because it is both inexpensive and easy to use, despite my efforts right now to the contrary. But there's all kinds of fluxes out there. So you can use liquid flux, you can use spray flux. You know, a lot of jewelers will actually make their own flux with a borax cone and water. So, I mean, there's so many different versions of flux out there. So find the one that works best for you. My first teacher used liquid flux and I hated it. I felt like it got everywhere except for where I wanted it to be. And then I tried spray flux and it was even worse. Paste flux was like my happy place. I was like, yes, I can paint this on and it'll stay where I put it. Super, super happy making. But again, that's not the case for everybody. If you do a lot of really fine, delicate, like filigree work where you're just spending like so much prep time laying everything out, you know, then your liquid fluxes are great because you can drop them on there without disturbing what you've done. So again, it's just about what works best for you. So now I'm going to turn on my torch, and I'm going to sweat my solder onto my bezel cup and onto my jump ring. So what that means is I'm going to heat the metal until my solder flows and flattens out on the metal, and then I'm going to stop. And again, this technique is called sweating the solder. So I'm just going to heat everything gently, and of course that little guy just decided to come off. There we go. Now that little guy decided to come off. This is another reason that I really like pick transfer, is I feel like when you don't pick transfer, you're just spending like half your project time chasing your solder. Okay, so this little guy needs to go back up there, but I'm gonna, okay. So that solder flowed. Did you see that? It just flattened out on my bezel cup. So now I'm gonna try and do the same thing on my jump ring. I put way more flux on that than I needed to, which is fine. You really can't overflux. It just takes longer for your flux to burn off to the point where you can actually see anything. So now I've got solder sweated onto this and solder sweated onto that. So now we take our piece. We're going to decide which side is the top, and I'm going to set that on top of my jump ring. And so the key here is I've got my 2 solder points there and there, and that's where I want my piece to be sitting. And remember rule number 2 of Allison's soldering safety lecture, okay? Everything on this board is hot, okay? Hot enough to burn you, so don't touch it with your bare hands. I don't care how cumbersome tweezers feel. Like, if you're gonna try and move it this close to, you know, this soon after soldering it, use your tweezers. If you don't have that level of patience or dexterity with tweezers, you could always quench these pieces in water and then they would be cool to the touch. So that's gonna sit on top, and that's my ring. Okay, so now we're gonna heat this whole thing until our solder reflows and bonds all of our pieces together. Now, this piece in the center here is gonna kind of, this one's secure, okay? My piece is sitting on top of this ring, it ain't going anywhere. So what I need to keep my attention on is the setting here, because it's gonna start sliding because of course it's on top of a dome. So that's where I'm gonna put my attention as far as just like making sure that it stays where it's supposed to stay and doesn't like slide halfway down the hill and then get soldered down there. Now we got a lot more metal here than we had before, so it's going to take some time for everything to get hot enough for your solder to flow. So, you know, don't get too impatient. And you can usually tell when that bezel cup has bonded because it'll just kind of settle down a bit. And you can see there that my ring just bonded. Did you see that solder flow there? Just make sure that that side's bonded as well. So you actually can see it. Like you can see the solder seam form right there. I'm pretty sure that that is on as well. So, dun, 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 dun. There we go. Everything's soldered together. That's what it looks like on the back. If you wanted to, you could trim off the bottom of that ring so you just had a semicircle instead of a full circle, half of which is on the back. I usually don't bother, but that's completely up to you. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it into the pickle pot. So what is pickle and what is a pickle pot? Well, a pickle pot is the pot in which you store your pickle. But pickle's a weak acid solution. What it does is it cleans all the crap off of your metal. I mean, you'll notice that, you know, that metal now is dark, it's dirty, it's full of oxide, it's full of flux residue. It's not pretty at all, and we want to make it pretty, so we're going to use the pickle to clean off all of that gunk so that then we can polish it with some steel wool and make it pretty and then set our stone in it. Now, if you have more time to complete your project, like if I weren't doing this as a stream tutorial, what I would do at that point is I would take that straight off my solder board and I would throw it in my tumbler. Tumbler is a rock tumbler just like you may or may not have had when you were a kid. I had one for about 5 seconds until it leaked and made a mess all over the bathroom and my mother threw it away. But it's the same machine. They come in basically 2 different iterations, rotary and vibratory, and so it's just a barrel that either rotates or vibrates. You put stainless steel shot, water, and some kind of soap in there, and the action of the shot bashing against your metal will actually polish it. So you can actually skip your final pickling step if you're going to tumble your metal. You can just take it straight from your soldering board, throw it into the tumbler, let it go for a day or so, and it'll come out nice and shiny and clean. But of course, once again, since I'm doing this as a stream tutorial, you know, I want to actually finish it in front of you, so I am using the pickle. The pickle's also used if you're doing a more complicated piece where you've got lots of joints, because you're going to get to a point where your metal is so oxidized and dirty that your solder's not going to want to flow on it. So you can pickle every so often during your project to facilitate the flow of the solder. That being said, I am a lazy pickler. I am such a lazy pickler. I do not pickle nearly as much as a lot of metalsmiths do. A lot of metalsmiths will pickle before. Why the F do I have copper depletion gelding on here? What did I do? Okay, I don't know what I did to cause this because it did not overheat this. But I have, I've got a layer, because sterling silver is a silver copper alloy, I've got a layer of copper. that's stuck on my surface. So I'm gonna finish pickling this, and then I am actually gonna have to bust out the super pickle. So I'll run off camera and grab that in a minute. But so let's talk for a second about super pickle. Super pickle is another acid solution. And the one that I use is vinegar, 1:1 vinegar hydrogen peroxide. It will strip copper off of the surface of your metal. So you get that effect that happened to me not so often on silver, not very rarely in fact, but you get it on brass and bronze because when you pickle it, it takes away all of the surface molecules of the alloyed metals, which would be tin in the case of bronze and zinc in the case of brass, leaves you with a layer of copper on the surface, which you can sand away, but holy God, it takes forever. So chemically stripping it is so much easier. So this is where super pickle comes in. Like I said, I use, some people will add hydrogen peroxide to their actual pickle. I don't like that. It's, first of all, it stinks, and it's super caustic. 1:1 vinegar and peroxide works just fine for me. So I'm gonna go grab those components and I will be right back. So make sure you use a non-reactive dish. For this, I've got a little ceramic dish, and I've got my vinegar in there already, and I'm gonna brand new bottle of peroxide. So I don't usually measure. Sometimes this works out well for me, sometimes this works out poorly for me. Alright, now we're going to grab this guy and we're going to put it into the solution, and it's going to sit for a while and think about what it's done, and hopefully the copper is going to come off of there. Ideally I want to start seeing bubbles, and as long as I see bubbles going, then it's doing its job. Watch pickle never bubbles, right? That's a good point. Ace has set us up to rerun tutorials. So does anybody have any tutorials that they would like to see rerun? Y'all can talk amongst yourselves while I'm staring at my pickle. See, this is the problem with not measuring. Usually there's not enough. Okay, how should you dispose of your super pickle? Yes, the same place you dispose of your actual pickle, which is neutralize it with baking soda, pour it into a jug. Once your jug is full, take it to your community's hazardous waste disposal site, and they will get rid of it safely for you. Now that being said, have I been known to just neutralize it and flush it down the toilet? Yes, I have. You're not supposed to, but I have done it. Staring at my pickle definitely needs to be a button list item. And this Hamsa is just on a chain. Mary, I sold the Hamsa that I was wearing in this morning's tutorial to Robin during the day today, and so... Alright, so I needed to add a little bit more peroxide, but you'll see that we actually have progress. Okay, so that depletion gilded layer of copper is almost all gone. Once again, using the chemical stripping agent is so much faster than trying to sand it off. Like, seriously. Also, I feel like chemical stripping agent should be on the button list as well. And if you've got a lot of copper on your piece, like if you're doing a brass or bronze piece, like literally after you pickle it, the entire surface will be depletion gilded. So your super pickle will actually turn blue. That's what happens when it gets saturated with copper. There really wasn't that much copper on the surface of this. And I don't know, honestly, I don't know if it was some kind of weird reaction from my pickle or if it was just heat. But we shall see. Okay, so now it's time to polish. So once again, you could put this in the tumbler if you had the time, or what we're gonna do is we're gonna move the super pickle over there so that theoretically I don't spill it. And I'm gonna take my fine steel wool. This is quadruple zero steel wool. You can use triple or quadruple. I find on metal, it really doesn't make that much of a difference which one of those two you use, and I'm just going to use that to buff my metal. Now, if you're buffing by hand, usually you'll keep the oxide in the crevices, like it'll just stay on its own, which is pretty nifty. If you tumble, all the oxide will go away and it'll just get shiny, in which case what you can just do is go back in with a Sharpie marker and just color in all those lines, and then take some rubbing alcohol to get your excess marker off the surface, which for anybody who does not find that sufficient explanation, it looks like this. So you're just going to color with your Sharpie in your lines. You can color messy, it's okay. Okay, so I've messy colored my lines, and then I'm going to take my rubbing alcohol and just wipe the surface, and what that does is it keeps the black in your crevices but takes it off of the surface of your metal. Now of course I have to do all of my little bits and pieces because it's darker than the patina was on the metal. I should finish buffing it though first. Megan wants to know, will the Sharpie color last forever? And if the piece is not exposed to water, it will pretty much last indefinitely. If it's something like, I mean, this is actually a really good example. This bracelet is, I blackened with Sharpie, and I wear this 24/7. I wear it in the shower, I wear it in the swimming pool in the summer. Like, I never take this off, and it still has color in it. So the answer is pretty much yes, but there's always a chance if it's exposed to water that it's going to go away, in which case, you know, you can just redo it. So I'm just going to go ahead and, now that I've done buffing it, and I'll buff the back in a minute. I'm really enjoying looking at the top of my head. Okay, so go ahead and just clean that off. You know, I don't know, Megan. I actually honestly don't know. It probably does depend on what kind of Sharpie you use, because I've noticed sometimes the colors are not quite as intense as the black. Like for instance, when I'm writing on plastic bags and things, some of them smear much more easily than others. So you probably have to run a test to see. Also, I'm going to clean out the center of my bezel cup, and I'm just trying to get the steel wool gook out of there. If you're dealing with something that's semi-transparent or opaque, you really don't need to worry about polishing the center. And when I say center, I mean the inside of your bezel cup. If you're using something that's super transparent like quartz or citrine, then you do want to clean that up, because all those little gooky spots will show. Your stone actually will work like a magnifier to show all the places where you didn't clean things up. Another fun trick is if you happen to be setting something like an opal, like a white opal, it's actually going to pop way more if you do your Sharpie and if you patina that with black inside, because opals and moonstones, white, really nice rainbow moonstones, are the other one that really just pop out if you put some black behind them. So I'm just going to take my steel wool real quick and just clean out the back of this. Now, there's something that I forgot to do, and it's something that I always forget to do. I am like the worst about it. This is a sterling silver piece. That means that I should hallmark it 925, because I know that it's sterling, but whoever I sell it to might not know that it's sterling if it's not stamped. So at this point, it's like, okay, how much do I care? And the answer is, I think I care enough. So ideally, what I would have done is, after I did my, interesting, blue and black are the best colors for specimens. Okay, so you could probably use the blue then to do this, but maybe not any of the other colors. But anyway, so I am going to just grab my 925 stamp. And the thing you have to be careful of here is not to mar the surface, like that outside surface. So I'm just going to pop that on my bench block. I'm just going to put this right near the edge, and I'm going to just barely tap it. Well, okay, well apparently I need to tap it a little more than that. But I can't just put it back in my dapping block because of my setting. So this is a perpetual problem of mine. This is just something that I do. I'm really bad at remembering to hallmark, but ideally, once again, I would have done this when it was flat. So after I did my pattern stamping, I would have taken my 925 stamp and just stamped it on the back of my flat disc, and I would not be going through all of this rigmarole that I'm going through now. Okay, that's close enough. So I got a little ding on my surface there, but it's not a whole lot, and I did get the majority of my hallmark there on the back. And if you ever wonder why sometimes your sterling pieces are hallmarked poorly, that's why, because artists, not all artists are absent-minded, but this one certainly is. Okay, so now we're going to see if my cockamamie idea of taking this glass eye and setting it in this bezel cup is going to work. So first of all, does it fit in the bezel cup? No, it's too big. Wait, are you going in there? Come on, go on. Haha, it does fit. Yays. Okay, so it's not too big. Look, it fits. You want to make sure it's level, which right now it definitely is not. So I'm going to grab my prong pusher, and I'm just going to gently try and push it down, and I'm going to try my best to be forceful but not break it. Though the good news is if you break it, it'll be pretty easy to get it out of the setting, and it's just a little glass piece, so it's not like it's expensive. Oh, you're so close to being level. Little eye, you're so close. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. Yes, I'm talking to my piece. You know, these things happen. Okay, I think that's as far down as it's gonna go. I think that's work. Oh, I just want you to go down a little bit further. You know, and this is where we have what one of my former coworkers used to call the futz factor, which is, you know, if you futz with it too much, you're gonna futz it all up. Really bad about staying away from that problem. Okay, so it's not completely level, but it's pretty much down in there on all sides. So I'm going to call that good enough. You can see, like, you can absolutely see right there that it's not level, but we'll see how it goes. I think there's still enough bezel up on this side to hold it in. So we're about to find out. So we're going to take our prong pusher, and I'm actually going to start with that side and just roll my bezel over the top. So what I'm doing with my prong pusher is I'm pushing a little bit in, but mostly down to roll my bezel over my little eye. And then I'm going to go to my opposite side, push the bezel down there, and then I'm going to go the other 2 compass points, and now I have pretty much effectively squared my circle. It's not equal because, like I said, my eye is not level, but now I'm going to go and try and push down all of these points that I've made. And I really just want to do the best job I possibly can with getting the bezel down over the stone in this area right here where there's not that much of it. And to that end, I'm actually going to have to put it down on my work surface and do it, because my little box that I use to heighten, raise is the word, raise things up to the camera height, it collapses in, and so I can't quite get the amount of force that I really want. And interesting factoid about me and bezels is, back when I first started fabricating, I would never roll my bezels. I would always glue my stones in at the last minute, and the reason for that is I could never get them to look nice. I could never get them to look clean. And the reason for that is I wasn't working hard enough at it. I wasn't applying enough force. When you're rolling a bezel, you're literally taking a straight piece of metal and you're stretching it and curving it over your stone. It ain't easy. Once I finally realized that, my bezels started looking a lot better. Also, this tool, prong pusher, my fave. Not everybody's fave. Some people definitely prefer bezel rockers. Good on you, but the prong pusher was love at first sight. Okay, maybe not, but it is legit like one of my favorite tools. Okay, so since my stone's not level, I mean, you can tell that because there's way more bezel on one side than the other, but I'm pretty sure it's in there tightly enough that it's not going to fall out. I can see that my bezel is ever so slightly rolled over that side that's higher, so we're going to call it done. Now, before I sell this to a client, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put it in the tumbler. This is a pretty good test. If my stone will stay in the tumbler, then chances are pretty good that my stone will stay in through my client wearing it as well. But not everything can go in the tumbler, okay? When in doubt, do not put your finished piece with stone in the tumbler. Couple of reasons. Number one, porous stones like lapis, malachite, turquoise, they will get gross. They will absorb all the crap that's in your tumbler, and they will come out looking like absolute doo-doo. Number two, if you didn't do a good job of rolling your bezel, dirty tumbler water will get under your stone, which if you've got something that's semi-transparent like this, just makes it, you know, pretty much ugly. And is there a number three? Oh, you never know what else is in your tumbler that's gonna like bash up against things. So best practice, of course, is to tumble before you set your stone, but if that doesn't work and you are 100% sure that your stone will survive, and like I am with this, because it's not even a stone, it's a piece of glass, then, you know, you can throw that in the tumbler and see what happens. Cat hair in the tumbler. There shouldn't be cat hair in the tumbler unless your cat has been bathing in the tumbler. Which, not gonna lie, kind of gross. Tumbler water is nasty. It is full of all of the, all the gook that it pulls off of your metal. The burnishing soap that you put in there is designed to hold all that gook in suspension. So you just have this water that's full of all kinds of just like nasty, cruddy, black, awful, miasma. But hey, it does the job. So that's it. That's our sterling mandala pendant, and I am not gonna lie, I'm pretty happy with mine. Even though my stone's not centered, it's still watching you. It's watching out for everybody. Watch out for me. But yeah, so that's our sterling mandala pendant. So thank you all so much for hanging out with us on the Beading Dreams stream. This Torch Thursday evening tutorial. I'm Allison from Beading Dreams in Dallas, Texas, and of course we are an actual brick and mortar retail bead store. We are here to feed your need to bead Monday through Saturday from 1 p.m. until 6 p.m. If you're not local in Dallas, we'll be back on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream, not tomorrow night. Why? Because tomorrow night is our Zoom crafty cocktail time. So if you want to Zoom with us and you don't have the credentials for the room already, email us, beadingdreamsdallas@gmail.com, or ask in Discord, and we will get those credentials posted. I don't post them publicly on social media anymore because we had a couple of weird incidents. But yeah, so you're welcome to Zoom with us tomorrow starting at 6 p.m. Central Time. We'll be going from 6 to 8. It's free crafting time. I won't be teaching anything, but I will. Yay! I'm so glad, Mary. I'm so sorry. You feel better. But yeah, so it's open crafting time. I will not be teaching a project, but I will be here to help y'all with any questions that you might have about our projects or any other projects that you've been working on. It's usually a really fun group of people, and I'm going to be Zooming here from the store because I don't have internet at my house, so we should not be having the connectivity issues that we had last week. And yes, Megan, I have the Zoom set up as a recurring meeting, so it is the same every Zoom, though the Zoom only happens every other week. But yes, every week that we Zoom, the credentials will be the same. Okay, so that's it for me tonight. Thank y'all so much for hanging out on the Torch Thursday Beading Dreams stream for our Sterling Mandala pendant. Everyone have a great Thursday night, and I will see you on Zoom tomorrow and back on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream, on Saturday with our coin bracelet. We're going to punch holes in things. Always a fun thing to do on a Saturday night. So everyone have a good one, and we'll see you then. Bye.